The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with tension. Thousands of alien representatives sat in their floating pods, all eyes fixed on the human delegation standing in the center. The massive crystal dome above showed the swirling colors of space, a reminder of what humanity was about to lose. "The vote is final," announced Head Counselor Mason, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "Humanity has been found guilty of dangerous technological advancement without proper oversight. The sentence is exile." The human ambassador, John White, stood tall despite the crushing weight of the moment. His gray hair and weathered face showed the strain of months fighting this decision. Behind him, his small team remained silent, though their hands were clenched into fists. "You're making a mistake," John said, his voice steady. "Humanity has always worked for the good of the galaxy. Our advances in fusion technology and artificial gravity have benefited everyone." A tall, blue-skinned alien rose from the front row. "Your people went from primitive spaceflight to dimensional engineering in less than 2 centuries. No species moves that fast naturally. You're hiding something, and the galaxy cannot take that risk." The truth was simpler than they imagined. Humans were just curious, always pushing boundaries, always asking what if. But the Council had made their decision based on fear. "The terms of exile are clear," Head Counselor Mason continued. "Humanity has 50 standard years to withdraw from all colonial worlds and retreat to their home solar system. Any human found outside this boundary after that time will face immediate detention." Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Crowds gathered in every city, watching the broadcast from the council chambers. In New York, London, and Beijing, people stood in silent shock. 50 years to abandon everything they had built among the stars. The world president called an emergency meeting. In the underground bunker of the Global Defense Center, humanity's leaders gathered around a simple metal table. They weren't there to accept defeat. They were there to plan. "We have 3 options," said Defense Director Mike Thompson, standing before a holographic map of the galaxy. "We can fight, we can submit, or we can do something they'll never expect." Chief Scientist Lisa Hall stepped forward. Her eyes sparkled with an idea that would change human history forever. "What if we take everything with us? Not just our people and ships, but our entire solar system." The room fell silent. The scope of her suggestion was either brilliant madness or the greatest engineering challenge ever attempted. "The theory is sound," she continued. "We've been developing stellar engineering technology in secret. With 50 years to prepare, we could convert Jupiter and Saturn into massive fusion drives. We could take our whole civilization into the unknown." The world president leaned forward, his eyes reflecting the holographic stars. "Instead of being trapped in one system, we'd be free to go anywhere, beyond their borders, beyond their rules." The plan was approved within 24 hours. As news spread across human space, something unexpected happened. Instead of panic, there was excitement. Humanity had always dreamed of impossible things, and now they had no choice but to make those dreams real. Work began immediately. Ships returned from distant colonies carrying people and resources. Every factory, every laboratory, every mind turned to the great project. They called it Operation Exodus. The aliens watched with confusion as humanity seemed to accept their punishment too easily. They didn't understand that humans were already looking beyond the galaxy's edge, to spaces no council species had ever dared explore. In the final days before the project began, John White stood in his office on Earth, looking at the night sky. The stars that had once seemed like prison walls now looked like stepping stones to something greater. Humanity had been cast out, but they would make the void their home. "They think they're punishing us," he said to his empty office. "But they just gave us the push we needed to become something more than they could imagine." The countdown to humanity's greatest journey had begun. In the darkness between galaxies, new stars were waiting. The transformation of an entire solar system was a sight that would never be forgotten. Over the next 20 years, humanity reshaped their cosmic home into something that had never existed before in the known universe. Jupiter, the giant of their solar system, became their primary engine. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the gas giant, their quantum drills diving deep into its stormy surface. Engineers converted the planet's entire mass into a controlled fusion reactor. The Great Red Spot, once a storm that could swallow Earth 3 times over, now glowed with artificial power. "The tethers are holding at full strength," reported Chief Engineer Jack from the Jupiter Control Station. His team had spent 5 years perfecting the star tether technology, invisible strings of pure energy that could pull entire planets. Saturn's rings became a vast collection of processing stations, its ice and rock transformed into resources that would sustain humanity during their long journey. The beautiful rings that had once inspired poets now powered the machines that would save their species. Earth itself underwent dramatic changes. Massive shield generators rose from every continent, designed to protect the planet during their journey through the void. The oceans were stabilized with gravity nets, preventing them from being torn away when they began to move. "Initial tests show all systems are green," Lisa Hall announced to the World Council. She had aged 15 years since proposing this crazy plan, but her eyes still held the same determination. "We can begin the full system activation sequence." The day of departure approached. Humanity had built something unprecedented, a mobile civilization. Every planet in their system was connected by the star tethers, ready to move as one unit. Mars had become a massive farm world, its entire surface covered in environmental domes. Venus hosted the backup systems, its harsh environment perfect for storing their most critical technology. People gathered in observation pods throughout the system to watch the first test. When Jupiter's new engine fired for the first time, its light rivaled their sun. The gas giant's entire mass became controlled energy, pushing against the fabric of space itself. Power output at 30% and holding steady. Jack's voice came through the global comm system. "All planetary tethers are responding correctly. We're actually moving the entire system." The test lasted only 10 minutes, but it proved their wild plan would work. Humanity could take their home with them into the unknown. The aliens who had exiled them had never imagined they would attempt something so bold. As the final countdown began, the world president addressed all of humanity. His image appeared in every home, every ship, and every station across the solar system. "Today, we're not just leaving our galaxy. We're taking our entire civilization with us." They meant to confine us to one small corner of space. Instead, they'd forced us to achieve what no species has ever attempted. "We will carry our sun, our planets, and our hopes into the darkness between galaxies." The day of departure was unlike anything in human history. Jupiter's engine fired at full power, its energy carefully controlled by thousands of monitoring stations. Saturn's smaller engine activated next, its power perfectly balanced with its larger partner. The star tethers glowed with strain as they began to pull the entire solar system. Earth's sky changed color as their sun moved for the first time in billions of years. Gravity stabilizers kept everything in perfect balance. Children watched in awe as their familiar stars began to shift position. "All systems holding steady," reported Lisa from the main control center. "Current speed is building exactly as calculated. At this rate, we'll clear the galaxy's edge in 20 years." Humanity had turned their exile into the greatest adventure their species had ever known. Their solar system, now a vast ship carrying billions of souls, moved steadily toward the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge. As they passed the boundary of known space, automated buoys left by the Galactic Council recorded their departure. The aliens who watched the footage couldn't believe what they were seeing. An entire solar system, moving as one, carrying humanity to their self-chosen exile among the stars. The Great Migration had begun, and with it, humanity's journey to become something entirely new. 200 years into their journey through intergalactic space, humanity had changed in ways their ancestors could never have imagined. The once empty void between galaxies had become their classroom, their laboratory, and their proving ground. Captain Mark of the scout ship Pathfinder stood at his viewing window, watching the endless dark. His vessel was one of thousands that explored the space around their moving solar system, searching for anything of interest in what most species considered empty space. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual," his sensor officer called out. "Energy readings unlike anything we've seen before." The Pathfinder's screens lit up with data. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, something was generating power on a massive scale. It wasn't the random energy of a star or the chaos of a black hole. This was artificial. "Take us closer," Mark ordered, but maintained stealth protocols. As they approached the source, the crew fell silent. Through their advanced sensors, they could see it. A cluster of stars, hundreds of them, arranged in a pattern too perfect to be natural. Someone had moved entire stars into position, creating something that looked like a vast geometric sculpture in space. "Send word back to control," Mark said. "We found signs of civilization out here, and whatever built this makes our stellar engineering look primitive." Back in the solar system, now dubbed Traveling Earth by its inhabitants, the news caused excitement. Humanity had suspected they weren't the first to venture into the void, but this was their first proof. In the 2 centuries since leaving their galaxy, humanity had evolved. Living in the darkness had forced them to adapt. Their technology had advanced beyond anything their exilers could have predicted. Children were born who had never seen a natural star except their own sun, who thought of space as home rather than an alien environment. "The star cluster appears to be abandoned," reported Dr. Paul, head of the new Discovery Division. He stood before the World Council, showing holographic images of the Pathfinder's discovery. "But it's perfect for colonization. Whoever built it is long gone, but they left us a gift." The council chamber had changed over the centuries. Now it floated in space between Earth and Mars, a symbol of how humanity had learned to truly live in the void. The counselor's eyes glowed slightly, a sign of the subtle genetic modifications that had become common, allowing humans to better process the limited light of deep space. "We should send colony ships immediately," suggested one counselor. "This could be our first real home since leaving the galaxy." But others were more cautious. What if the builders return? What if this is a trap? The debate raged for days. In the end, curiosity won out over caution. It always did with humans. The first colony ships were prepared, their crews eager to explore this mysterious collection of stars. As the colony ships approached the cluster, they made another discovery. Hidden among the stars were ancient space stations, perfectly preserved. Inside, they found libraries of data, written in codes that would take years to decrypt. "Whoever they were travelers like us," Dr. Paul announced after the first data translations came through. "They moved between galaxies, building these waypoints. This isn't just a discovery, it's an invitation to follow their path." The void between galaxies, once thought to be empty, was revealing its secrets. Humanity had found their first signpost, pointing the way to something greater than they had imagined. Captain Mark stood on his ship's deck once again, watching as the colony ships began their work. The stars of the cluster shone like jewels in the darkness, each one a new opportunity for exploration and growth. "They tried to trap us in one solar system," he said to his crew. "Instead, they forced us to become true children of space. And now we found others who came this way before." The darkness between galaxies was no longer their exile. It had become their kingdom. And somewhere out there, more discoveries were waiting, left behind by those who had traveled these paths in ages past. Humanity's journey was no longer just about survival. It had become a quest to unlock the greatest mysteries of the universe itself. 3 decades after discovering the ancient star cluster, humanity had transformed it into their new capital, Haven Cluster. What was once a mysterious geometric pattern of stars had become home to billions, a shining beacon of civilization in the darkness between galaxies. The largest installation in Haven Cluster was the Central Dyson Swarm, a vast network of solar collectors that surrounded the brightest star in the formation. Commander Peter watched from his office as maintenance drones moved between the massive panels, each the size of a continent. "Energy production is now at 300% of our original estimates," reported his assistant through the neural link that all Haven citizens now used. The ancient builders left us an incredible foundation to build upon. The neural links were just one of countless advancements humanity had made. Living in the void had pushed their technology and biology in new directions. The people of Haven weren't quite the same as their ancestors who had left the galaxy centuries ago. "Show me the latest construction reports," Peter commanded. The air around him filled with holographic displays, showing the progress of their newest megastructure, a space-time observatory larger than Earth itself. In other parts of Haven, vast shipyards produced vessels that could cross the intergalactic void in weeks rather than centuries. The technology they'd developed to move their solar system had evolved into something far more sophisticated. "Sir, we're getting reports from the Edge teams," his assistant interrupted. "They've mapped another 30 light-years of void space. There are more artificial structures out there." Peter smiled. Every month brought new discoveries. The space between galaxies, once thought empty, was proving to be filled with wonders left behind by ancient civilizations. Humanity wasn't the first to be exiled here. They were just the latest in a long line of wanderers. Down in the research districts, Dr. Helen worked with a team of scientists studying artifacts from the original builders. Their lab was built into an asteroid that had been carefully hollowed out and pressurized. "The quantum signatures are finally making sense," she announced to her team. "These aren't just navigation markers, they're parts of a much larger network." The ancient builders were creating something massive out here in the void. Haven Cluster had become more than just a new home. It was a base for humanity's greatest scientific and engineering projects. Without the restrictions and fears of their former galactic neighbors, they were free to push the boundaries of what was possible. The original solar system, still moving through space under its own power, had taken up position at the edge of Haven. Earth's sun joined the geometric pattern of stars, adding its light to the cluster. It was a reminder of where they had come from, but also how far they had traveled. "We're picking up unusual readings from Section 7, a technician reported to Peter. "The ancient technology there is responding to our presence. It's like it's waking up." This was happening more and more often. As humanity settled into Haven, the dormant systems left behind by the builders were activating. Each activation brought new challenges and opportunities. In the residential zones, life had taken on a rhythm that would have seemed alien to their ancestors. People moved between rotating habitats and zero-gravity cities, their bodies adapted to any environment. Children were born who could process visual information across multiple dimensions, seeing patterns in spacetime that their great-grandparents would have found impossible to comprehend. "The latest population report shows we've passed 15 billion, Peter's assistant noted. "And that's just in Haven Cluster itself. The colonial expeditions to other discovered structures have added another 3 billion to our civilization." Peter walked to his window, looking out at the geometric pattern of stars that had become home. Each point of light represented not just a star, but dozens of habitats, research stations, and construction projects. Humanity had taken what they found and built upon it, creating something unique in the history of space. "They meant to confine us," he said softly. "Instead, they forced us to build something greater than anything in their galaxy. We're not just surviving out here. We're thriving in ways they never imagined possible." Haven Cluster glowed in the void, a testament to human determination and ingenuity. And somewhere out in the darkness, more mysteries waited to be discovered. Deep in the void between galaxies, the research vessel Discovery drifted silently near a massive structure that defied conventional physics. The ancient ruin hung in space like a frozen explosion of metal and crystal, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Professor Allen stood in the observation deck, his enhanced eyes scanning the structure. After 6 months of careful study, his team was finally ready to enter the mysterious facility. "All exploration teams, final equipment check," he announced through the neural network. "Remember, we're not just looking at alien technology here. We're looking at something that rewrites our understanding of the universe itself." The first sign that this discovery was different had come when their sensors failed to properly scan it. The structure existed partially outside normal spacetime, following rules that human science was only beginning to grasp. Team 1, moving into position, reported Lead Explorer Bill. His environmental suit, advanced as it was, looked primitive next to the gleaming surface of the alien structure. We found what appears to be an entrance mechanism. The team had discovered that the ancient builders hadn't just mastered intergalactic travel, they had learned to manipulate the fundamental laws of reality. Each new chamber they explored contained technology that seemed more like magic than science. Careful with those symbols, Alan warned as the team approached a glowing panel. Last time we rushed our translation, we accidentally reversed gravity in half the ship. Inside the structure, they found vast halls filled with dormant machinery. Holographic displays flickered to life as they passed, responding to their presence after eons of silence. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with energy that their instruments couldn't properly measure. "Professor, you need to see this." Bill's voice carried excitement and awe. "We found some kind of library. The data storage system. It's like nothing we've ever seen." Alan made his way through the twisting corridors, each step bringing him closer to what would become humanity's greatest discovery. The library was a spherical chamber where information existed as patterns of light suspended in the air. "It's not just technical data," announced Dr. Mary, their lead linguist. Her neural implants were working overtime to process the ancient language. It's their entire history. They were called the predecessors, and they didn't just travel between galaxies, they built the highways between them. As the team worked to decode the information, they learned that the predecessors had discovered something profound about the nature of space itself. The void between galaxies wasn't empty. It was a canvas where the laws of physics could be rewritten. They used this knowledge to create a network. Alan explained to the Haven Council during his emergency report. "The geometric patterns we found in Haven Cluster, the strange structures our exploration teams keep finding. They're all parts of a vast machine spread across the intergalactic void." The implications were staggering. The predecessors hadn't just built waypoints for travelers. They had created a system to modify and control the very fabric of space-time. And now humanity had inherited their work. "The question is," a council member asked, "why did they disappear? If they had this much power, what happened to them?" The answer came as they decoded more of the library. The predecessors hadn't vanished. They had evolved beyond the need for physical form. Their final gift to future civilizations was the knowledge of how to follow their path. They left everything here for a reason. Alan told his team as they continued their research. They knew that eventually, someone would be forced out into the void, just as they were. They wanted their knowledge to be found by those who dared to venture into the darkness. Back in Haven Cluster, new construction began immediately, applying the first pieces of predecessor knowledge. Humanity had already adapted to life in the void. Now, they would learn to master it. "Our exile wasn't a punishment," Alan wrote in his final report. "It was the first step on a path that the predecessors mapped out ages ago. We're not just discovering their technology, we're fulfilling their legacy." The ancient structure continued to orbit silently in space, its secrets slowly unveiling themselves to those who had been brave enough to venture into the darkness between the stars. 500 years after their exile, humanity had become something their former neighbors couldn't comprehend. The once empty void between galaxies pulsed with the energy of their civilization, powered by technology that merged predecessor knowledge with human innovation. In the old galaxy, the Galactic Council's long-range sensors detected something unprecedented. Massive energy signatures, far larger than anything their science could explain, bloomed in the darkness beyond their borders. Admiral David stood on the bridge of the Messenger, humanity's most advanced diplomatic vessel. The ship itself was partially out of phase with normal spacetime, a common feature of human engineering now. "The message is ready for transmission," his communications officer reported. "All quantum channels are aligned with their old frequencies. They'll be able to receive it, even if they can't understand how it works. The message was simple. To the Galactic Council. 5 centuries ago, you exile humanity to protect yourselves from our rapid advancement. We return now not in anger, but in friendship. We have grown beyond your fears and your understanding. We offer you a choice: isolation in your galaxy, or evolution alongside us. In the council chambers, the message caused chaos. The aliens who had once feared humanity's quick progress now faced something far more profound. The energy readings from the void showed power usage that exceeded their entire galaxy's output. Their ship is approaching the border, reported a council technician, fear evident in their voice. It's bigger on the inside than the outside. Our sensors can't make sense of it. The messenger moved through space in ways that defied the council's physics. It didn't use conventional engines. It simply adjusted its position in reality, crossing light years in moments. We're receiving a response, the communications officer told Admiral David. They're requesting proof of our claims. David smiled. Show them Haven Cluster. Through quantum imaging technology, the council chambers were suddenly filled with a real-time view of humanity's new home. The geometric pattern of stars pulsed with energy, surrounded by structures that dwarfed planets. Dyson swarms absorbed the power of multiple suns, feeding it into machines that rewrote the laws of physics on a whim. This is just one of our settlements. David's voice echoed through the council chamber. We've found others like us in the void, civilizations that your galaxy feared and cast out. Together, we've built something greater than you can imagine. The council members watched in stunned silence as the images showed humans moving through multiple dimensions, ships that could cross galaxies in days, and technology that treated space-time itself as a building material. We don't seek revenge, David continued. You gave us the greatest gift possible. You forced us to look beyond the limits of what we thought was possible. Now we offer to share what we've learned. Back in Haven Cluster, billions of humans went about their daily lives. Their civilization now is far beyond their old galaxy, as their old galaxy had been beyond primitive Earth. Children played in zero-gravity parks, where they could reshape local reality with a thought. Scientists casually manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe. The council is deliberating, the communications officer reported. They seem afraid. They should be, David replied. But not of us. They should fear remaining trapped in their old ways while the rest of existence evolves beyond them. The messenger hung in space at the galaxy's edge, a bridge between the old and the new. Its crew waited patiently for the council's response, knowing that whatever the answer, humanity's path forward was secure. In the void between galaxies, Haven Cluster continued to grow. New discoveries were made daily as humanity pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The predecessors' knowledge had shown them the way, but human creativity and determination had taken those lessons to new heights. Final message from the council incoming, announced the communications officer. David stood straight, ready to hear their response. Whether they chose to join humanity's grand adventure or remain in their isolated galaxy, one thing was certain. The species they had exiled had returned transformed, ready to reshape the very fabric of reality itself. The ancient pattern had come full circle, and humanity stood ready to guide others along the path they had discovered in the darkness between the stars. In the Grand Council chamber that had once witnessed humanity's exile, a new history was being written. The chamber itself had been modified to accommodate beings that existed partially in other dimensions, a small courtesy from the human delegation. We have considered your offer, the head counselor announced, their voice trembling slightly. The galaxy has been stagnant since your departure. Perhaps our fear of change was our greatest mistake. Admiral David, now joined by Professor Allen and Commander Peter, stood before the council. Their slightly shimmering forms reminded everyone present that humans had evolved far beyond their original limitations. What you fear isn't change, Professor Allen explained, creating a hologram that filled the chamber. It's the unknown. Let us show you what we've discovered in the void. The hologram expanded, showing the network of civilizations humanity had found and helped build in the darkness between galaxies. Ancient races that had also been exiled, younger species that had voluntarily left their galaxies seeking something more. All had contributed to something greater than any single civilization could achieve. "We call it the Intergalactic Commons," Commander Peter said. "A place where knowledge flows freely, where evolution, both technological and biological, is embraced rather than feared." The council members watched in amazement as the hologram showed vast structures that defied their understanding of physics. Beings of pure energy collaborated with partially ascended organic species. Children played with quantum fields as easily as their ancestors had played with toys. "But how can we trust that this power won't be misused?" asked one of the council members. "How can we be sure?" David smiled, a gesture that now carried multiple layers of meaning across several dimensions of reality. "Because we learned the most important lesson in the void. The universe is vast enough for endless growth and diversity. There's no need for control or fear when space itself is your canvas." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't offering to share just technology or knowledge. They were offering a fundamental shift in how civilization itself could exist. "We've established transit points throughout the void," Alan explained. "Any species ready to take the next step in evolution can join us. Those who prefer their current state can remain as they are. There is room for all paths." The changes began almost immediately. Some species from the old galaxy eagerly embraced the opportunity, sending their best and brightest to learn from humanity. Others chose to watch and wait, maintaining diplomatic contact while keeping their distance from such profound changes. In Haven Cluster, humanity continued to grow and evolve. The knowledge of the predecessors had been just the beginning. Human creativity and determination had taken those foundations and built something unique in the history of existence. "They're beginning to understand," Peter told his colleagues as they watched ships from the old galaxy arrive at Haven's transit points. "Just as we did, they're learning that the void isn't empty, it's full of possibilities." The integration of the old galaxy into the intergalactic commons would take centuries, but humanity was patient. They had learned that true evolution, whether of species, civilization, or reality itself, couldn't be rushed. "Full circle," David mused, watching from his command center as another group of species made their first journey into the void. They exiled us thinking they were protecting themselves from change. Instead, they set us on the path to becoming the guides for all civilization's next great leap. In the spaces between galaxies, humanity's greatest achievement continued to grow. Not an empire, not a conquest, but a network of infinite possibility. They had transformed their exile into an opportunity that benefited all sentient life. The void that had once seemed empty now pulsed with the energy of countless civilizations learning, growing, and evolving together. Humanity had found its true purpose not in domination or revenge, but in becoming the bridge between what was and what could be. And somewhere, in dimensions beyond normal spacetime, the predecessors watched with satisfaction as their chosen successors continued their work, guiding the universe's children toward their next great adventure. The exile was over, but humanity's journey had only just begun.